Hey community, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, I'm Dr. Blaire, a doc in clinical psychology. And on this channel, we discuss psychology, inspiration, social justice, and all topics in between. First things first, hit that subscribe and bell button. You know I want to see you back next week. And of course, stay tuned because we're going to continue this series around emotional fill in the blank. Keep watching. All right, so let's jump into it. Last week, we had a conversation about emotional distraction. This week, we're going to talk about, drumroll, emotional reactivity. So, emotional reactivity, again, I'm glancing down in my notes to make sure that we capture everything that's needed, is an experience and response with an intensity, a high arousal state. And this might look like lack of emotional control or management. It might look like making rash decisions. It may look like having an escalated or even warped perception of an event, and even having quick mood changes. Now, you don't have to drop this in the chat, but go ahead wherever you are and raise your hand if you can relate to ever being emotionally reactive. Now, some of you may be saying, you know what, Dr. Blaire, I don't really quite understand what this looks like. No problem. Fortunately, in this situation, I have a laundry list of examples and experiences that I've seen, and even maybe some of myself. But as you know, I like to share the truth and transparency, and I've given you all some of my experiences, so I really don't mind doing that. But in this moment, I'm not going to use my experience because for those who know me personally, know I'm a pretty even-tempered, even-keeled person, relatively calm for the most part. It takes a whole lot for me to have a response. Most of the time, people who have a tendency to respond reactively are, as I mentioned, they don't have as much skill with managing their emotions and controlling it. And so emotional reactivity is more of a pattern for them and less of sparks that happen every once in a while. All right, so an example would be, and I'm of course not going to use any names, but I knew a young woman at one point in my life, and almost anything could bother her deeply. Now, mind you, emotional reactivity isn't always this overt response. I think that people likely always expect that people are going to quote unquote act out. You may not act out, but your response within may be just as intense. You still might see that reflection in the body. And so, for example, if someone strongly disagreed with this young lady, and expressed the disagreement, and she strongly agreed with whatever she agreed with, for her, that was a moment to be reactive. Well, this person is confrontational. This person is not a team player. Like, they would just go off the list and go off the rails about however they felt about that person in that moment. Now, was that the wise decision? I would say no. However, it's how they felt, and that's fine if you feel that way, but that doesn't mean it has to direct your behavior. And so she would have a very strong emotional response, would be highly anxious moving forward, highly frustrated moving forward. Now, none of that showed up as acting out. Instead, it showed up as you walk into the room and feel that she was really tense. You could see her body language was very tense and stern. You would see that she would sit and her leg would shake a lot. You would see that she would avoid conversations because, again, we're looking at you're aroused, highly aroused. And so she would do everything to a level of intensity that even though you weren't being overt and you weren't lashing out at people, you still were, your behavior still gave off a negative energy and an intense, highly aroused energy that this was bothersome for you. Okay, let's use an example of when a person does act out, and we probably all seen this with children. They're an easy target in this situation, but instead of using children, I'm going to use the person that is at a sports game, because we have probably all seen when somebody has bet their money that the so-and-so team is going to win, and when they do not win, they strongly react. They strongly react, and they have a hyper aroused moment. Maybe they want to flip over over some tables, knock stuff off the wall, maybe even punch a wall, highly aroused, highly upset. They have lost their money. The team that they said was going to win did not win. And some of you are probably saying, well, you know what? These behaviors are justified. Okay, maybe. But the point is that this person is highly aroused, and that this is an emotional reactive moment. Now, why is this emotionally reactive? Because they probably watched the game the entire time and saw that the score was low. Maybe it was a tie, but there was already a possibility that your team would lose. Anywho, it's just an example. You also go ahead, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath. I'm not coming for you. I'm just wanting to explain what emotional reactivity looks like. Okay, and so we have to get into some solutions really soon as it relates to emotional reactivity. But before I do, my inspiration comes from the Word of God. So I'm going to have to share this scripture with you. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 2. Some of you, I'm sure, heard it. You probably even know it by heart. And it reads, "Do not make rash promises and be hasty in bringing matters before God." You can continue to read the rest of that, but I want to pause here. Do not make rash promises. The emphasis is on the word rash. What does rash mean? Lack of careful consideration. When someone is emotionally reactive, they react. They don't respond. It is impulsive to a sense, even though it didn't have to be impulsive. It's just a lack of control, right? Just not to reduce it. It's a lack of control. Okay. Hasty. It says, do not make rash promises and be hasty in bringing matters before God. Hasty, quick, urgent, hurried. Okay, let's gather ourselves. So when you are emotionally reactive, there is really no time span in between you having your emotional response or, feeling into actually allowing that to reflect into your behavior. No consideration, no pause. So if the word is telling us do not do these things, and then come to God, because people come to, Lord, she made me upset. I can't believe, I needed that money from that game. I needed to pay X, Y, and Z. Instead of doing that, don't do that. Here's what we need to do instead. My recommendations, whether you're a believer or not, is to pause in those moments and exhale. Inhale, breathe. Just breathe and think. Give yourself an opportunity to process your feelings first. What are you feeling and why are you feeling that way? Sometimes people respond so quickly they can't even pinpoint why they feel so intensely about whatever the event, the problem is. Process your feelings first. After you're processing your feelings, it is then up to you to pause and respond to the situation or to the problem instead of react. What does that look like? Have you ever seen someone accidentally drop better yet, have you seen a kid drop or pour, knock over a glass of juice? What is a reactive response for a reactive? What is an emotional reaction? Yeah, versus a response. An emotional reactivity might be, oh my goodness, why would you do that? A response would gather yourself and think to yourself, you're probably concerned that the kid could be in danger, slip, or that the glass might break and they could get glass on their feet, that could be a dangerous situation, floor could get sticky, a list of other things. Okay, I see why I'm feeling the way I feel. Now, again, you don't have 10 minutes to pause and think here. This is a skill that you're building, that you're going to build over a period of time where you're able to actually reflect on how you feel and gather after processing more quickly after you continue to practice this more consistently. And maybe you don't need a lot of time. I'm just saying, for those who are like, I'm emotionally reactive, I need to start doing better here. It's going to take time. You build up to it. That's okay. So after you know what your true concern is so that the baby isn't hurt, maybe your response is go grab the baby, put the baby in a place where they are safe, go clean up the juice in the glass. We all can stay calm. Baby is safe. Things are cleaned up. This is no longer a danger zone. You respond instead of react. Say this list again. 1, pause Inhale, exhale, breathe, think, process your emotions first, and you want to respond and not react to the problem. That's it, y'all. Ecclesiastes 5, verse 2. Again, all this information is going to be in the description box. And as I said earlier, it is May Mental Health Awareness Month. And as I mentioned, I have special things in store for you. So I am expecting to see you back here next week. And in order to make sure you get all the notifications, go ahead and subscribe here to this channel so that you know when new episodes have been dropped. And go ahead and give me a follow on other platforms, Facebook, Instagram, even Clubhouse, at Dr. Blaire across all of those platforms. I'd love to speak to you in another way and engage. And nonetheless, thank you all so much for watching. I pray that this is helpful for you. My challenge to you this week is go ahead and assess, are you emotionally reactive? If so, practice this short list of solutions. Just 3 steps. Pause, breathe, think, process your feelings, respond versus react. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Share with your community, and be sure to share with someone specific who needs to hear a bit more around emotional reactivity. And of course, before you go, and I see you next time, if I'm great and you're great, then we're a great community.